Welcome to the Church of Thomas. Boy helped by 4 swords. 1:27:08. I recently read a wonderful account of how God's angels help in personal ways. The story I read was recounted by the mom of the boy the angels helped. She did not think of angels in the way her son remembered them. She was not sure they really intervened in that way. It was the description of the angels that struck a chord with me. They were not some cherubic cuties. They were power personified. They carried swords. As most of you know by now, angels carrying swords is the norm for me, not the watered-down version most people subscribe to today. I generally preach about next-generation angels. However, these in the stories are the older ones who do not live here in the world. They live where God sends them. They help in spirit form only. This by no way diminishes their aid. They just do not need to have bodies to do it. As a few of you know, I have encouraged you to reclaim your swords. A couple of you have said it scared you. You were afraid that you could hurt someone. With God as your guide, you could not hurt an innocent. This story is a good example of how our swords are used to heal. Remember that a surgeon only uses the sharpest tools they can find, scalpels. As next generation angels, you can become healers as scalpels of God. The mom who tells the story is an associate minister for a Presbyterian congregation. The story is on their website. I am grateful to her for giving me a sermon subject. Her name, if you would like to read the story in her words, is Erin S. Cox-Holmes. She works at the Presbytery of KISKIMINETAS as Associate General Presbyter. The setting for the story is several years ago during the winter. Her son has severe asthma. He uses therapies to ease these symptoms. These treatments were a daily regimen. He had recently had a birthday where he turned 6. On this night he was having a treatment as usual when his mom heard him cry out for help. When she got to him, he was already turning blue. He could not talk either. She was aware of the jeopardy her son was in. I'm sure, though she did not say it, that she was going through other crises with asthma in the past. You are not put on treatments unless you have been critically affected before. I'm sure the urge to get him to the hospital as soon as possible was her reaction. She normally would call an ambulance with all of their equipment to try and help him breathe. All of these things crossed my mind. There was a problem. The area was pounded by a horrible blizzard. According to her story, there was already 6-inch snowfall outside. Their house was on a steep hill that was difficult and a challenge to drive in those conditions. It was a scary situation. Somehow the ambulance made it and got the boy in to begin the trip to the hospital. It was touch-and-go situation the whole way. Both parents were praying for God's help as they drove behind the ambulance. There was no room for the paramedics to work on him if there were too many people. The paramedics worked on him the whole way. After a harrowing drive, they finally made it to the hospital. The boy was still in serious danger. When the mom went into her son's room, she was shocked. Her son was sitting up and breathing normally. The family, of course, thought it was the effects of the meds and heroic efforts of the paramedics and doctors. The mom and dad were overjoyed, to say the least. The next day, her son was talking about the ordeal when he came out with an extraordinary story. His version of what happened had similarities but included details she could not have foreseen. The boy's story goes something like this. He explained that he was aware that his dad was praying for God's help, but it wasn't working. The boy started to pray too after he was put in the ambulance. It was the little guy's first real prayer by himself. He said when he closed his eyes and opened them that they had company in the ambulance. The boy knew that his parents had not been able to come because of the close quarters. Apparently there was room for the company that joined him and the paramedics in the ambulance. He saw 4 angels and their swords when he opened his eyes from his prayer. He recounted that 1 angel stabilized the stretcher from moving. 1 angel steadied the IV bottle so that it would not swing and break against the side of the vehicle. 1 angel held his head in her lap and sang a story to him. He said that he could not remember the story, but it comforted him. He said the biggest one took his flaming sword and cut a pathway down his airway. He could suddenly breathe again. He was excited because the angels were there. When he closed his eyes again, it made him very sad because when he opened them again, they were gone. He wondered if he could still have them if he had not closed his eyes. When he told his mom this story, this side of the story, she was very grateful to God and the angels that had been sent to aid her son. She prayed that the singing angel would tell her the words to the song that had comforted her son. She knew this was a wonderful miracle from God. As you can see from this story, first, that God sends angels to help people. Music by way of a song was used to calm and comfort the boy. There was an even number of angels, since 2 teams were dispatched. And last, the big one, as the boy put it, used a sword. The sword was used to heal by cutting through the obstructed airway. The sword was described as flaming by the boy. Have you ever wondered why the swords that angels carry and use are often called flaming? The flaming is the power of God. No sword of cold steel could do the wonders that the power of God, as symbolized by the flaming sword, could do. There are many ways that the swords are used. This example was of physical healing. Another example is cutting through lies to reveal truth of a matter. The severing of the chains of various forms of slavery is another. There's another side to wielding a sword, as my defeat of the dragon in my childhood nightmare will attest. But by decapitating it, I freed myself from the fear that dream inspired in me. Satan and the evil that pestered this place are no innocents. Defending yourself from them is righteous violence. God would not offer you a sword unless you could be trusted with it to use it wisely. So in conclusion, I ask you not to turn down the offer of your sword. God is asking you to work in a trusted position, wielding God's healing power wherever and however God deems it to be needed. God bless the whole world, no exceptions. Angel Eliza.